there are writers out there, and then there are writers. And I've known George Wayne for about 30 years, and I'm telling you something, if there's somebody out there that really understands celebrity, it's him. We have been on TV together, remember?
That's true. Was it Geraldo? I can't remember.
Oh, yes. We were on Geraldo together. We were on, we did an episode, a live episode, don't you remember, with our friend Jennifer Flowers.
Yes, we did.
You asked her if she's seen the presidential penis.
Well, that's true. Actually, it was Jennifer Flowers. I did ask Jennifer Flowers that, but I did ask Paula Jones about
Oh, you asked Paula Jones that, okay.
Yeah, Paula Jones. That was a big scandal because I interviewed Paula Jones for Vanity Fair and also James Carville at the height of the Clinton impeachment. And the interviews were so incendiary. And had we run those interviews in Vanity Fair at the time, I think he would have been kicked out of office. And I don't want to have that on me.
I know. Have times changed or what? Can you imagine the scandal that went on in the 90s happening now?
Yeah, really. I think there's more scandal going on now, but no one seems to care because the whole world seems to be inured and, immune.
To me, this time that we're in is like being in a science fiction novel. I'm waiting for I'm waiting for there to be like a crescendo in this story, and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier.
Well, what do you think is going to happen, Jesse? You tell me, because you're the one.
You know what?
Who knows what the future?
If I were to tell you right now, by what I'm reading in the media, what the media wants you to believe, it would probably be Joseph Biden. But I think there's a secret society of people who won't admit that they're voting for Trump. A lot of outlets have poo-pooed this because they said, oh, yeah, that's what happened in 2016. But you know what? You know what's happening? People didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. They voted for Donald Trump because they didn't like Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
Now we have people who don't like Donald Trump.
I knew he was going to win the last time. I knew it.
Me too.
And you can't compare what happened in 2016 to 2020. It's a whole different ballgame. But I will go on the record. I'm not going to be like you. I'm going to say, I just think he has to be swept away, like Diana Ross would say, swept away. So I'm hoping for that.
I love it when you break out into song.
Swept away.
I have admired your interviewing style for a very long time. I love the fact that you are blunt, that you take no prisoners and you have no fear. I was reading some of the stories that were written about you, and I love what you said about how you handle celebrity publicists. Tell the viewers how you do that, because I think it's fascinating.
The bane of my existence. The thing about celebrity publicists is that they believe that they're the ones that really matter. They have a certain sort of like self-importance.
I'm the star of this picture.
Yeah. So when a pushy publicist, I have to arrange with a publicist for an interview with such and such, and the pushy publicist shows up on set, I always say to them, first thing, you sit in the corner over there. Okay? I don't want to hear from you.
Sit in the corner.
Yeah, you sit in the corner and you keep your mouth shut. Let me deal with the talent. So it all depends. But the pushy publicist, you just have it's part of the whole job of interviewing celebrity, as you well know. When you work with a brand like Vanity Fair, the crown jewel of Condé Nast, everything is very precise. I usually have a month back in the day to do my interviews. I had a month of preparation. So everything was really precise in the sense that also over 25 years of doing that for Vanity Fair, we developed a system. For instance, I always remember we had to sort of like improvise and include what we would call the Bon Jovi rule. Because when I interviewed John Bon Jovi many years ago in the 90s, he was on tour, so he wasn't in person. I like to do the interviews in person, but that's not possible all the time. So Bon Jovi was on the road, and I called him in Montreal on the phone, and he was having a miserable. He was obviously in a bad mood, very rude. And so I had to stop the interview. I said to him, "Are you having a bad hair day?" This was the height of the hair band.
I think so many of us would love to talk to John Bon Jovi about his fucking hair.
The height of the hair band, and he was so mad. He was so upset that he refused to have the photo shoot afterwards, after the interview.
Ah, you learned your lesson. You never do the photo shoot after the interview.
Exactly. So we had to like incorporate the Bon Jovi rule from that day on. And every time the interview, GW would interview after the photo shoot.
Oh yeah.
So Bon Jovi we had to use the illustration.
And I read about Ariana Huffington. What you gave her a life. You told her her husband was gay, and 5 months later, she got divorced.
Exactly, and that happened. Ariana owes her reinvention to me.
Oh my God.
She does. I mean, I look back and I think that interview, another one that never ran. And
moment of silence.
I'm working on my memoirs right now, and of course, that's going to be a big story. I mean, because Ariana, I went to watch
Friction, right?
No, I'm calling it simply Gorgeous. Simply Gorgeous. I'm actually
gorgeous. I love it.
I'm actually been working all pandemic on my next book, which is I want to call my irreverent memoir. And I've actually been having some good conversations, and I'm kind of pretty close to getting a book deal, which I really don't want to talk about yet because then I give me enough advance. So we'll see.
But your life is fascinating. You know what? I'll tell you, with what's been going on in our country and the way we're talking about immigrants and the way we're talking about eccentricity, you are, whether you like to admit it or not, an example of the American dream. You came here from Jamaica, and look, you have so much power, you have so much influence, and it shows you that you can get, that there is an American dream, and that you are an example.
That's so true, Jess, because, I mean, I remember being a kid in boarding school, 15 years old, 14 years old, and the school nurse, for some reason, took a liking to me because I was just this little skinny, shy kid. And she introduced me to People magazine, an Interview magazine. And when I read Interview magazine for the first time in my life, I was like, that was my eureka moment. I said, I want to go to New York. I want to work at the Warhol factory. I want to meet Andy Warhol. You did
all of that. You did way beyond that.
And I did. And luckily enough, my parents weren't able to send me abroad to go to college.
Now tell me about your parents, because I know you praise them a lot, but we know nothing about them.
Well, my family, a middle-class Jamaican family, I look back at...
What part of Jamaica? I've been all over the island.
I grew up in Mandeville. Mandeville is like right in the middle. They call it the bougie part of Jamaica because it's Kingston, Mandeville in the middle, and Montego Bay, which is on the other end. So Mandeville was kind of like the third largest city. It's in the mountains in Jamaica, in the middle of the island, in the parish of Manchester. Very beautiful part of the world to grow up. So I was lucky, my parents,
brothers or sisters?
I'm the eldest, but I always feel like I'm the youngest. I'm like the crazy one.
You took a lot of abuse, huh?
I was the crazy one because they couldn't understand. Well, I'm not sending you abroad to go to study journalism. When the parents
did you know that you were gonna be a journalist then?
I wanted to. Yeah, I did. I said to my father.
How old were you when you knew?
Like 14.
Wow.
I couldn't wait for my father to come home with Huh?
Did you say to your parents, like,
I didn't tell them. When I was about to go to college in America, I said, well, I'll go to law school because I knew if I told them journalism, they wouldn't send me. They're not going to send you.
You could have been a lawyer, Georgie. You could have been a lawyer.
I don't know.
Oh, yes, you can. The way you talk, you can sign.
I can do an inquisition like a lawyer, but I don't know if I could study all those law books.
Yeah, well, this is more fun anyway, what you do. So forget the law.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, and so I came to New York, and when I came to America, I graduated. I went to college in Georgia, University of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea when I was in Athens, Georgia, that it was actually the coolest college campus in America at the time. It was the heart of the counterculture. The B-52s, RuPaul, Love Tractor, REM.
Wow.
These bands and these performers all came out of Athens.
So it really had an influence on you.
Yeah. And that kind of sort of like honed my downtown counterculture like sensibility. So by the time I got to New York City, at the height of the AIDS epidemic.
What brought you to New York City?
Because That's where I wanted to be.
Oh, so that was in your mind before you left Jamaica. You were like,
yeah. I wanted to go, I wanted to meet Andy Warhol. That was my dream. I wanted to work at the factory so bad.
Wow, and you did it.
I did.
That's not easy to do. So what do you think your gift was? I mean, did you talk how did you ingratiate that whole crew?
Oh my God! So when I came to New York City, my first job was working in advertising, because at the time, being a copywriter was like the Mad Men era.
My father was a copywriter.
You see? So an advertising was the cool, glamorous job to have. So I worked in advertising as a junior copywriter at a big conglomerate behemoth of an agency called NWAR, AYER, huge agency like Ted Bates or Gilbert, huge agency.
Oh, I know it.
Right, so you would know. And I was a junior copywriter, but I just said I hated the 9-to-5 thing. I hated it so badly. I worked on Burger King and the Bahamas.
You worked at Burger King?
No, the account.
The Burger King account.
The brand, Burger King.
But it's too corporate structure for you.
Right, exactly.
Too many borders for you.
Exactly.
You're a free spirit. You need to
So finally they fired me from my job.
And you're probably relieved.
And I got the unemployment check. And you know what I did? Every night I would go out trying to meet Andy Warhol. So I would go out every night to the Michael Todd room at the Palladium, or every art opening that I could, get into to meet Andy. And finally, I was getting to know Andy. And he'd walk in the door at the Michael Todd room, and it was just like magic. Andy would walk in with Basquiat or Keith Haring or Grace Jones or whoever. But when he walked in that door, the energy level in the room, just like to this day, I've never seen anything like when Andy Warhol walked into a room in New York City. Because everyone at the time, Jesse, we wanted to be writers, poets, artists. It was a dream, and we all saw that Andy could change our lives in an instant, and he could. So I was getting to know Andy. I'd walk into the Todd room, and he'd see me. He's like, "Oh, hey, George," and I'm like, "Oh my God!"
He knew your name.
He remembered my name.
Oh my God!
And so I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna get at the factory. I know it's gonna happen." And then Andy went to the hospital and never came out.
Oh,
so
that was.
He died, and then when Andy died, and Ingrid Cici took over interview, and Glenn O'Brien, remember Glenn O'Brien?
Right, sure.
Another one of the Warhol,
the whole crew,
So he hired me.
Did you know Susan? You know Susan Blonde, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Susan Blonde. Right. Didn't you date Susan Blonde?
No.
I thought you and Susan Blonde had an affair, Jesse.
No. Come on. I won't even comment. I'm not walking into this, George. No way.
Tiptoes of the minefield, baby.
Anyway, oh my God. So Andy, what was the first thing when you met Andy Warhol? What was how do you speak to Andy Warhol? Well, I met him a few times before he died, but I never really, I had a couple of events I went to, but it was always incidentary conversation.
Right. Well, I mean, Andy had his public persona, As it's very hard to carry a conversation with Andy Warhol because he never spoke. He basically one word, hi, smile, and he was on his way. So I didn't, it was just basically Bear Jones.
How did you break that wall down?
You did, right? How did I break the wall down? It was Bear Jones, actually.
Bear
Jones. Bear Jones, who was like this head, a trust fund kid, whose father actually created People magazine. And Beard was connected with all the.
Beard's father created People magazine.
Oh yeah, I
never knew that.
You never knew that. Beard Jones's father was the man who started People.
Wow.
And Beard, obviously, Upper East Side, well read, and well funded. He was a trust fund kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he knew everything that was going on in the art world in New York City. And the first time he met me, he says, "You could be the next Warhol." I'm like, I don't even know how to paint. But he was right in the sense that when no one would hire me, I started Rome magazine, my own little Xerox magazine, because no one gave me any work. Because Andy wouldn't hire me at the time. So I started Rome, which was basically my version of Interview, which I would Xerox, print up at Kinko's, and distribute to like 5 little shops around the East Village. And that's how my career started.
Wow.
Because
it just shows you.
Yeah,
you're very well educated. See, that's the difference. And you know how to articulate. You're not afraid. Fear is the biggest thing that you have to get out of the way to succeed in this life, especially in the world of media. So congratulations.
Yeah, you just have to fuck. You just have to fuck. I don't know if I could have done this like now, thinking about it. It's like, would I have the courage? Would I have the sense of optimism?
Would it be worth it?
Would it be worth it to keep going, to keep just going for what you want to do, you know? And I had no choice. I had no choices. Either that or, you know, go work at McDonald's in real life.
No.
So I started.
We don't want to be part of real life. Don't you dare bring me into any real life.
So when I started the magazine, that's how it began.
Wow.
David Hershkovitz, who was at
tell the viewers, because you know, ladies and gentlemen, you don't realize George Wayne has interviewed GW, right, as everyone calls you. You have interviewed everybody.
Anyone who's anyone. You could buy the book on Amazon.com or the Strand, any bookstore. I did my book by Compendium in 2018, came out 2017, 2018, and it's the time.
And anyone who's anyone is HarperCollins, right?
HarperCollins, right? Because I've interviewed from Charlton Heston to Faye Dunaway.
I heard Faye Dunaway hung up the phone on you 5 fucking times.
Yeah, she did. She was a nightmare.
How did you get her? First of all, how'd you get her to pick up the phone 5 times?
She picked up the phone, and then we were having a nice conversation. But she was miserable. Another one. It was like the.
There's always one that I have never heard anyone say anything nice about.
Yeah, she is a classic. She is cuckoo. She's actually nuts, I think. And she kept hanging up the phone, and every time I'd have to call back and like, please, Miss Dunaway, can we just try and finish this interview? And she was like, I don't want to talk about my son. Don't ask me about this. And I'm like, okay, ma'am. It was the most trying, traumatic situation, but I had to get an interview, you know, because because if we didn't get that interview, the picture didn't blank for that month.
You know, it's amazing that when you interview all these fractured people, you realize how balanced you really are. Any doubt you had that maybe I come from a dysfunctional life? No way. I am functional.
There's always somebody crazier than you out there, especially those in Hollywood. You know,
incredible, man.
So yeah, I've run the gamut. You know, the art of doing an interview is preparation, of course. You got to prepare. And when you interview someone like a Faye Dunaway or you know, a Charlton Heston or a Farrah Fawcett or a Hollywood legend that's been doing that, magazine celebrity interview for decades, they know how to sort of deal with the journalist, you know? So you have to bring something new to the table. You got to get something out of them. And I think that's what was my greatest gift, was the fact that I could sort of cajole and get something new and interesting and original out of the subject, out of the talent, because they've been doing interviews for decades. They kind of have their run, you know.
When you interview somebody who's a total pro, it's a fascinating thing. I once got to interview Katharine Hepburn.
Exactly.
I'll never forget how she steered the interview. And I was good then. I did every little thing I could possibly. And she looked at me at the end. She goes, darling. Hey, with the head shaking, darling, don't even try. She knew what I was trying to do. She knew exactly what I was trying to do. But it was nice. In a way, it was actually fun to hear her know that she knew. To admit it.
I love that imitation. But can you imagine interviewing Katharine Hepburn? I don't know if I could even get the words out of my mouth.
I've gotten a chance to hang out with old Hollywood. I spent a week with Mickey Rooney. You know, and in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, in your country, yeah. I was invited to a Marjo Gortner invitational, and it was an amazing celebrity gathering. Patty Hearst, Pete Sampras, Dennis Hopper, Wolfgang Puck and his former wife Barbara. Henry Mancini and Jan and Mickey Rooney. And Ned Beatty.
Where were you? Round Hill?
And believe it or not, in sandals. How unclassy, you know.
Sandals.
Butch Stewart, baby, Butch Stewart.
Yeah, we love Butch.
Butch very well. Anyway, I mean, you know, some of these old Hollywood guys. Mickey Rooney was a piece of work. It was because of Ned Beatty that Mickey sat and talked to me. He would bark at me. I said, "Mickey, can I interview you?" Go away. Go away. Like a Douglas Fairbanks Sr. Go away. And Ned goes, "Come on, Mick." They used to call him the Mick. They go, "Come on, Mick. Jesse's a good guy.
Right.
Give him some time. And he sits with me, and all of a sudden he starts bawling like a baby. And I'm like,
who was bawling like a baby? Vicky Rooney?
Vicky Rooney starts crying to me. I go, why are you crying? He says, I'm sorry I'm like that. I get a lot of criticism for being, really, really nasty. He says, but I have a defense mechanism. I think people are going to forget about me. People are forgetting my body of work and what I did. And then he starts crying again. I go, you got to stop, man. People are going to think I made you cry. they're going to think worse of me than they think of you. Come on,
That's funny.
Oh my God. Old Hollywood fascinates me.
Did you ever interview Milton Berle, who was supposed to have
I did.
The biggest cock in Hollywood?
Oh my God. And I interviewed people like Donald O'Connor. And
who's that one?
Donald O'Connor, make them laugh and Singing in the Rain.
Oh, that's before my time. That's before my time, Jesse. I'm much younger than
you. It's a classic. You had like Ann Miller, the dancer.
Tony Curtis. I
interviewed Tony. I interviewed Gene Kelly over the phone after he had a stroke.
Wow,
that was a moment I wish it was in person. This is Hollywood folklore.
I love Hollywood folklore. I love it. Tom Cruise would probably be that interview today. That was sort of like we're talking about like the one who would drive the narrative. You'd be a very difficult interview, I think. Tom Cruise.
Yeah. You know what? Scientology is probably what would make he's definitely one of the forefront guys in Scientology, and every aspect of his life is controlled.
Yes, you know what? I stay far from Tom Cruise. I don't want to go near him.
The
questions I'd ask him, Scientology would be stalking me after that.
No way.
But I don't trust those people. When I interviewed, I'll give you something like I already discussed or talked about before. When I interviewed Paula Jones and James Carville, and I said to James
Carville must have been a challenge because he could talk, man.
James Carville, that builds him up. James Carville was a very evil man. When I interviewed James Carville, I told him what Paula Jones had told me about Clinton's penis and the birthmark and where it was. He was dumbstruck. He was so pissed. He was so shocked. And the interview never ran either. But you know what they did? And I'm convinced that the Clinton machinery did this to me. For the next year and a half while Clinton was in power, they basically had me followed for the rest of the year. Yeah, I swear to God.
You were being terrible.
I would walk out of my apartment and there would be an SUV trailing me wherever I went. I almost had a nervous breakdown. I swear to God. It had to be. I would go to Miami.
How long did that go on for?
Until Clinton left power. This would happen.
So over a year and a half?
Yeah, a year and a half. 1996. They were basically harassing me.
Did you ever try to find out who it was? Did you ever go up to the car and say, hey, fellas, would you like some coffee?
I was so scared out of my life. Here's this guy. I'm just a kid from Jamaica. Obviously, I poked.
You think they were trying to find dirt on you so they could deport you?
I think so. They were just like harassment, intimidation. Because I'd walk out and it's like, why is this car here every day now? It's a big SUV, Cadillac Escalade.
And you never got a chance to.
And I would just ignore it, and then it would follow me and then drive away.
Did you ever talk to anybody about this?
No, I spoke to my bosses. I spoke to Vanity Fair. I told them. They didn't care.
You told Braden. Braden. And what did Braden say?
They were like, you're on your own.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
What happened to the camaraderie? You're going out there.
They knew.
That sucks.
It was the worst. It drove me nuts. I was like, the only people that really got me through that were my parents, God them, bless them, and a few other friends. But yeah, I'm not making this up. I know. I knew that I was being surveilled because Paula Jones and James Carville. And when I did those interviews,
do you think it's worse now?
It's worse now. But
do you think if somebody really goes out there and decides to spill information or just go up, make an impact and go up against what they want you to believe, you think that you could be, devious shit can happen?
I right now, as I said, this is something I've kept.
Wow, that blows me away.
All these years, I never really discussed. I've told a few friends, but now as I said about trying to get my memoir written, I'm gonna have to talk about it. I have no proof.
Have to talk about
I have no proof, but I know it happened. I know it happened, and I know it had to be the Clinton cabal that did this. I mean, who else could have done that? Because
Why were they afraid of?
obviously they
Why were
scared
they afraid of you?
Huh?
Why were they so intimidated by you?
Because of the interview. Because this is at the height of the impeachment, Jesse. This was at the height of the Clinton impeachment.
So the Paula Jones interview
was at the height. Yes, this is at the height of the impeachment when he was about to, he would.
Do you ever go? You're sitting there freaking out for your life?
Yeah.
Do you ever say to yourself, "Was it worth it?" Is doing an interview like that? That I tell you, got me into trouble, and it was the scariest moment of my life. But did you ever question, like, is it worth putting my life on the line, getting an interview with somebody like this?
Yeah. Well, looking back now, probably not. But this is that the height of your your gung ho. I got to do this. It's a journalistic principle. I work for the best magazine in the world, and this is what they want me to do. Raiden was always the one who suggested who I interview. He was very hands-on with my column, Graydon Carter.
Wow.
And so you said that, Paula Jones, and I grilled her. I mean, I grilled her. I still have the interview.
I remember they called you the celebrity griller.
I grilled her.
This ain't no barbecue.
And then they said, okay, let's hold on. Let's go talk to James Carville. So I grilled him too. And he was shocked. He was shocked at the things that I was telling
you. Were able to hold, because he's an art form when it comes to
honey, have you seen that man? He looks like a Beelzebub. He's like the devil incarnate. I mean,
Beelzebub. Ooh.
Yeah, Beelzebub Carville. Wow. And I mean, after that, he hung up the phone, and Graydon called me and said, "Oh, we're not running the interviews. We're kiboshing those interviews because."
How many interviews have you had squashed because they were too,
only two.
Wow.
Paula Jones and James Carville were the
They should have run those interviews.
But Clinton was very run those interviews.
Clinton was.
He would have been gone. Trust me, he would have been gone, and I wouldn't, and that probably would have opened even more, sort of like nightmarish kind of worms. So, in retrospect, now I can talk about it because it was hard. But I can imagine if Trump is doing the same thing. I mean,
when people hear you talking about this, it's going to make the papers, man. I think that's because of the political situation. This is people accuse the Clintons of a lot of stuff, but this is like
Well, as I said, I have no proof. I really don't. I didn't follow, but something was going on. Something was going on where it was just a sense of they wanted to harass me, so I keep my mouth shut. That's what I thought. That's how I feel. But
bravo for you to take a stand. And
well, I hope this doesn't make the news because I don't
need real journalists.
I don't want this to be the October surprise.
No, I can't handle any more surprises. I'm done. My surprise level for 2020 is depleted. That's it. I don't want any more.
What do you think was the best? I mean, I guess if there's one good thing that came out of 2020, what do you think it would be, Jack?
Good thing.
One good thing that came out of this year. What do you think that would be?
I think a lot of people would say a change in the administration, a vaccine maybe.
But I think the best thing that probably happened this year was the fact that all these icons released such great music, like Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen.
People had a lot of time on their hands.
And Rolling Stones, we got a lot of Stephen Nicks. At least they produced.
No, the creativity part of it, I think definitely it brought a dark side out. I mean, listen to Taylor Swift's album. That album would have never been done had it not been for what's going on.
Well, you are the music guy. What do you think? I never liked Taylor Swift. So, but
I actually, you know what? It's not
like a folk album, right? It's kind of like her folk album.
But I liked her attempt at doing more rap and more street music. I think she's a very talented person. It's not my personal taste, but you know what? I do admire, and I love a good song, man. I do. It may not be the kind of edge that, that I would normally listen to, but I definitely respect her, And she handles the media pretty well. You got to give the girl.
Well, she's not even, she hides now. She's not even, she moved to London. She's hiding out in Hyde Park somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
She's not in America.
She was living in there were two robberies in one day at that deli right across the street where she lives.
Right.
And New York, the problem with New York is it takes 5 minutes for New York to go to hell, and it's going to take 5 years for New York to come back.
Exactly. Good point. You got to keep everything. You got to hold New York in like a print teacher, like the high school teacher with her cane in her hand. keeping everything in check, because the minute you let this, that, it goes to hell. Exactly. And that's why I believe they can't allow marijuana
did you hear today's news?
To legalize.
They're going to legalize it next year. Cuomo's office released.
I think that's just going to, on top of this.
You know why they're doing it, George? Come on.
Yeah, but
money.
But I mean, I just don't want to walk up the door and have people pot smoke everywhere I go.
Yeah, and you know what? I have kids. Now what happens when they come? But Daddy, it's legal. What am I going to tell them? I'm going to tell them you're not going to fuck up your life. That's what I'm going to tell them.
Well, we got to hold up. We just got to get a new mayor, first of all.
De Blasio is the, I have to say, it's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to New York City. And this is not because of, I'm not saying this because of any political party affiliation. I just think the guy's a complete and utter failure. Dropped the ball so many times. We have violence in New York City now, every single day, broad daylight. Homeless people defecating in Times Square in daylight. I mean,
it's really.
What the hell happened? The minute the Black Lives Matter protest happened, they didn't handle it well, and there was a whole bunch of guys looting it. They were pretty organized. And
he did nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
And neither did Cuomo. He could have overrode him. Cuomo did not do anything either. He was feckless, and that really is upsetting.
So
we become part of the tweet generation since Donald Trump took office.
Right.
But I love a quote I read that you said when somebody said, "Do you tweet, George?" You said, "I never tweet. I get paid for my opinion."
Precisely.
I love that line.
Precisely. I would never tweet. I mean, it's like my opinion is. It's like mine is like that's my ATM card. That's how I get the ATM card.
Unfortunately, if there's no money in there, the ATM card.
Tweeting is for me is just like something I never consider. Mm-hmm. But do you tweet?
No. I occasionally, once in a while, I'll send something out, but I don't enjoy the platform. Facebook, I read for the political stories just to see what people are thinking. Right. But it's very left wing. There's no objectivity, so even that gets tiring.
Yeah, I mean,
I like a good old fashioned conversation with friends and family.
Exactly. I mean, the whole pod thing. It's very interesting. I like the idea, and I'm starting my own pod too. I actually started it, so I hope you can give me a shout out for my pod. It's called 10Q.
10Q. What does that mean?
10 Questions and More. The George Wayne Show. It's going to relaunch very soon on Spotify and a few others.
So we're being carried now by Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple, and YouTube. So this is going to go out all over the place.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, man. We got to have fun. Let everyone know.
For sure.
George Wayne, legendary journalist George Wayne.
Thank you. And my book, Anyone Who's Anyone, available on HarperCollins website or Amazon.com or any reputable bookstore in America. If
you want to know the genius of George Wayne, you need to buy his book. And I don't get anything for saying that. Maybe a good rating.
Anytime you want me back on your show, just let me know.
I love you, Georgie. So glad we did this. I'm glad technology didn't get in the way.
Okay. Now, how do I turn off this?
No, you just hit the little red button at the bottom.